Hello, and welcome to this eCampus News webinar on the Secure Identity Challenges Delaware County Community College experience and how PortalGuard helped to solve them. My name is Chris Hobson, and I'll be moderating this event. I am the Custom Content Manager for eCampus News, and I am excited to have you join us for what should be a very informative session. Today's webinar is sponsored by PortalGuard. PortalGuard is an innovator. Cybersecurity is an authentication package that delivers a full set of features in a single, fully customizable solution. Before I introduce our presenters, I'd like to take a minute to go over some features of the platform that we're using for this webinar. Today's event will be recorded, so you don't have to worry about missing a thing. Within a few days, you'll receive an email message that contains a link to the recorded webinar, along with a PDF of the slides. You can submit questions at any time during the presentation by clicking on the purple Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, then typing your question into the pop-up box and hitting Submit. We'll save those questions for the Q&A session with our presenters scheduled for the end of the webinar. We also have a group chat function that you can launch by clicking on the blue chat button at the bottom of your screen. Feel free to use this feature to chat amongst yourselves or to contact someone from the eCampus News team if you have a technical question. But please don't use this feature to ask questions of our speakers. If you have a question for the speaker, you can use the Q&A box that I just mentioned. Finally, we encourage you to join the back channel conversation on Twitter by referring to the Twitter handle @PortalGuard authentication and hashtag ECMWebinar in your tweets. With these housekeeping items out of the way, let's get started with our presentation. Our presenters today are Greg Rowinski, Principal Software Developer for PistolStar, and Donald Sloat, Director of Technical Services for Delaware County Community College. At this time, I'm going to turn things over to Greg to begin the presentation.
Great. Thank you, Chris. So to start, let's take a look at the agenda. We'll have a brief overview of PistolStar, the company, and PortalGuard, the product. Then I'll throw it over to Don, and he'll talk about Delaware County's experiences before PortalGuard, then go into how things in their environment changed once PortalGuard was introduced, and then we'll wrap it up and answer those questions that you have. So first, PistolStar. So back in February, we just celebrated our 20th anniversary in business. So we've been around a long time. And during those 20 years, we've been focused on authentication. All the products that we've developed over those 20 years have always had that focus. So we are specialists in that area. The products themselves, we've always tried to strike a balance between usability and security. And this is delicate because usually stronger security impacts end users. And although the end users may sometimes feel this way, it's actually not IT's job to make their lives more difficult. So we try to help how we can through lots of configuration options and ease of management in our products. So for the dedicated technical team, we do all of our development and support in-house. We do not farm anything out, so that helps us provide a consistently exceptional customer experience. And probably most important for most of the folks in the audience today is that we are specialists in higher ed. Over 60% of our customer base is in that vertical, so we are intimately familiar with all the different apps and challenges in that space. So PortalGuard, the product, is what we're here to talk about today. And it is our flagship product. It's been the flagship for about 9 years at this point. And it has 3 main feature areas. So the first one is self-service. This can relate to a forgotten password reset. Students or faculty, staff can do at any time, 24/7. It could be looking up a forgotten username or just in general password and account management that end users can do on their own. The second main feature set is related to single sign-on. So we support a host of different SSO protocols that could be things like SAML, CAS, which is very specific to higher ed, OAuth and OpenID Connect are more modern protocols that we support as well. And so even if apps do not support any of those types of protocols, we also have options for web apps that have to use a password vault approach. So it's, again, something that we've been doing since our inception as a company. The third and final main feature area of PortalGuard relates to multi-factor authentication. So this can relate to either web access or desktop or server access. So we're always adding new options like web authentication / FIDO2, which is going to make everybody passwordless in the future, and it just may very well do that. We've added things like BioKey for fingerprint support, as well as old standbys like SMS text messaging, Google Authenticator, and Duo Push. There's a whole host of different options in that space. And the last bullet on this slide relates to how configurable PortalGuard is. So this relates not only to the UI, which you have full control over. You can actually customize it down to the error message if you'd like, but you also have a ton of controls on the configuration side. And so with that, you can have multiple configurations for different user types, and so that way it is not a one-size-fits-all. You can really configure the product for those different subsets of users as you see fit. Okay. So at this point, I'm going to throw it over to Don to talk about some specifics with his organization. Go ahead, Don.
Thanks, Greg. So first, let me tell you a little bit about Delaware County Community College. We're located in Media, Pennsylvania. That's about 20 minutes outside of Philadelphia, and we have 9 locations. We service over 20,000 students annually, and we have about 2,000 faculty and staff members. We've been live on PortalGuard now for about 2 years. Now, although we only have 20,000 unique students, we do have over 210,000 total Active Directory accounts that we use PortalGuard to authenticate and maintain passwords. And the reason for that is we started offering email for life once we went to Google Apps back in 2008. We also allow students to, former students to log in and get transcripts. That's caused a number of unique challenges having that many user accounts with respect to account lifecycle. We use Banner 9 for our student information system. Canvas is our learning management system. Our portal is a Drupal-based content management system, which we call Delegate. And our email, we use 2 platforms. Google Suite is for the students and Office 365 for employees. So before PortalGuard, we had Luminous, which is an Ellucian product, and we used that in conjunction with Ethos Identity Manager to handle single sign-on. We did, because Ethos and Luminous both ran off the Sun1 directory, and we were using Active Directory. It would take up to 10 minutes to do the password synchronization due to how the back end was configured. That led to a lot of frustrated students. They would come to the help desk or they would reset their password and then they would get back to class and they still couldn't log in. We had really bad uptime, 97.4, which is about 9 days, and that's mainly because the Luminous database was stored on the same database that houses Banner, and there's frequent Oracle patches, Banner patches, and things like that, which required downtime because we don't have a redundant Banner environment. No two-step verification was available. We had multiple phishing attacks on our, mostly the adjunct faculty, where folks would compromise our accounts. Luckily, they only ended up spamming a few million addresses. They didn't actually get into our systems, but two-step is something that was high on our priority list to deploy, so that was an issue for us. The products were difficult to troubleshoot and upgrade. We have a very small team. We have 4 folks that maintain all of the applications and servers, VMware and the like. So we would have to rely on consultants to do the upgrades, or wait for senior engineers to be available to help us out, even when we contacted support, because it was the skill set to troubleshoot it was limited. It was also a WSO2 fork, So getting security updates for some of the products took a little bit longer than we would have liked. We like to patch our things as soon as vulnerabilities come out, and so that was also a concern for us. We lacked auditing for password resets. We didn't have any idea who was resetting the password as an administrator, and because we have about 30 different employees doing password resets located all over the school, we couldn't audit it at all. So it was a huge security risk. You could reset the CFO just as easy as you could reset a student. So we wanted to address that, and there was not really any good reporting available. We're able to get a lot of reports out of PortalGuard by like how many users are using specific applications, how many people are logging in per day, how many resets per day, self-service resets per day. Those kind of reports are helpful to our operations just to know, are the things we're doing, are we getting better or are we getting worse, things like that. So it's very important to have reporting available. So why did we choose PortalGuard? Well, it had what we were looking for. We looked at a lot of different solutions. One of the key requirements for us was to streamline the user interaction. We did not want the student to have to go to one site on our system to set up their account and then go over and log into the portal. We wanted something where the student goes to one place, they get prompted for their acceptable use policy, to change their password, to log in or enroll in two-factor if they choose to, set up password reset, everything all in one. Not having them go here, go there, a long process for them. We wanted to make it easy on the student. We wanted to reduce the password reset requests. Our help desk was getting flooded with requests because the current product, the product we were using, only had forgot question and answer, and it required the exact case sensitivity, and that was very frustrating. Nobody could ever remember it, so it was pretty much 100% password reset at the help desk. We also wanted to future-proof our SSO platform for single sign-on. Office 365 was on the horizon, and we wanted to be able to support any app. We wanted to be with a company that was developing as new protocols were developed. We're looking for ease of management. As I mentioned before, we have a small team. Instead of doing everything command line, everything's in 2 applications. It's all GUI based. So now instead of having that one specialized engineer, all 4 of the team, any one of them can go in and configure single sign-on. Any one of them can go in and look at the logs. It makes it really easy on the team. There's no more single point of failure. So we're also looking for reliability and uptime. Responsive design was a requirement for all new applications, as was accessibility. Accessibility is more and more important, and PortalGuard was WCAG 2 compliant, so that helped us meet that objective. 2-step verification. As Greg mentioned before, they have at least 5 different types of 2-step verification built into the system. We've deployed YubiKeys, Duo, and mobile authenticator, and backup codes too, I should say. It's also fully auditable with flexible permissions. So as I mentioned before, I have 30 different people around the school. The contact center, for example, now they're restricted to only certain student accounts, whereas the help desk is restricted to certain staff accounts. And then, like, if you want to reset VP or senior IT people, you have to be in a different group. So it's a tiered access system, which works really good for us. And then technical support, that's always a big one. I mean, honestly, we look for a system where we don't actually need tech support. We want to be able to support it ourselves. But when you do need support, we want people who will respond quickly and get to the root of the problem, especially in a system like this, because this is the gateway to fit over 50 apps that we have. So we found that the PortalGuard support was top-notch. We did a proof of concept with them. We did a full deployment, I think, with 3 or 5 applications. and we worked back and forth with them, and we really knew that they knew what they were talking about. We didn't have to wait for responses. They got right on the phone. They do screen shares and the like. So it was excellent support. So how did we deploy PortalGuard? What does our environment look like? We use Banner with Banner Enterprise Identity Services. That comes through to our NetIQ Identity Manager, which synchronizes everything into our Active Directory environment. And then PortalGuard just connects to Active Directory and acts as that front end for access to all of our single sign-on systems. We did do a load balanced environment. We have both a prod and a dev instance. Each is load balanced, 2 web servers with 1 database. They do support high availability on the database side, but that's not something that we've set up at this point. We do use Cloudflare in front of our external environment for web application firewalling and denial of service protection. 78% of the traffic that comes from Cloudflare is cached, so that saves us hundreds of gigabytes of traffic. And it adds that, I think we have close to 700 threats per month that are blocked. So it works well with Cloudflare, which is another thing that we were looking to do. And we did test that in our proof of concept phase as well. It's real easy to use in terms of configuring single sign-on. We use AD groups to control all the security. So Banner automatically puts people into the various group memberships that they need to be in. And of course, there's always some SSO apps where you only have like 5 or 6 users, and for those, we just create an AD group. Anybody, on the team, they create an AD group, they go into the GUI, click 2 buttons, and SSO, they can add that group into the SSO configuration. So password management. Password management is very important. We are actually in the process right now of implementing the NIST recommendations from 863B. And you may have seen Microsoft is also now recommending against changing passwords, opting more for a lengthy password that's not complex. The idea being people won't write down their passwords if they don't have to change them all the time. What we found is, we walk around to different offices and we'll see people have the sticky notes. They don't even bother putting them under the keyboard anymore. They would just put them, right in plain sight, and they would just add a 1 or a 2 to the end of them every time, and it wasn't really secure. Once the NIST recommendations came out, where they recommend disabling complexity and password expiration, we emailed tech support and we said, hey, there's this new recommendation out. Do you think you guys can help us out? NIST recommends that you check passwords against a known list of breached passwords. So what they came up with was a system that checks when the user enters their password, it'll check against the Have I Been Pwned database, which has over 500 million passwords. So we're in the process right now of testing that and implementing that. So anytime that user will change the password, it will say, I'm sorry, this password is the password hash is a known password that was breached. And by forcing them to have a unique hash value, that should make it harder for somebody with a password list to brute force the accounts. We do require a minimum length of 12 for employees. We do 8 for students right now. As far as adapting to the changing security landscape, being able to deploy these just by going to PortalGuard and saying, hey, can you do this or that, and they'll come back after they evaluate it and say, yeah, we think this is helpful for all the customers, and they'll roll it out. We really appreciate the fact that they have flexible policies, which allows us, internally when we have a security issue that we want to address, we can create flexible policies with different layers of security. So, for example, service accounts may have one level of security. We recently deployed special security policies for the finance area. So PortalGuard will apply a higher level of security when the user logs in. For example, OIT are not allowed to use, which one is it? OIT does not have paper backup codes. So anybody in IT can only use a YubiKey or they can use their mobile app, whereas a regular employee can use backup codes, a YubiKey, or a mobile app. Self-service, we have over 20,000 self-service password resets annually. Excuse me. We've experienced a 75% reduction in password resets at the help desk. So it's really allowed our help desk to focus on the things that will actually help the student experience instead of lines out the door. We used to have lines out the door of people doing password resets. Faculty members would send their entire class to the help desk. So that those 20,000 self-service password resets, they do that by text message. So when they're initially enrolled, they are prompted to enter their SMS number, and then they verify it, and then moving forward, anytime they want a password to be changed, they just click Forgot Password. It sends them a text message with a 8-digit code. They enter the 8-digit code, and they can change their password. So that's only for students, though. We do not allow employees to change their password without a two-factor authentication. So as I mentioned before, we have over 50 applications. When we went live with the system, we only had 10. So you can see that we've added a lot due to the flexibility of the system. Canvas, Parchment, Banner, Argo, Starfish, a lot of the ones you might know, Zoom, Slack, VPN. We support, at this point, we're using multiple protocols: SAML, CAS, WS-Fed, Shibboleth. We have over 8.5 million SSO requests annually through the system. So it's been pretty rock solid, over 10,000 logins per day. As I mentioned before, it's very, very easy to configure through the GUI. And it's really accelerated that adoption of cloud SaaS apps. I mean, we used to dread them because we get a request for a SaaS app and it would take, weeks to set up. Now, like GitHub, we set that up, in less than an hour. Anything where you can go in and Slack, the same thing. Zoom, same thing. It's really simple to do. And whereas the old system was really a pain. Now, we have run into some issues, but those issues are every single time we've had an issue, it's on the vendor side. So we had one vendor who said they supported SSO with CAS. Turns out they had a bug in their code, but they would say, "Oh, your system doesn't work." So we, PortalGuard, got on the phone with their folks and us. We did a WebEx, and PortalGuard was able to prove to them where the problem was. The vendor team went back to development and developed a fix for it. So that speaks, I guess, to the level of support that we can get from them. It's there's no finger pointing. We've experienced that with other vendors, like, oh, it's that product. Oh, no, it's that product, and we're kind of stuck in the middle. With PortalGuard, we have not had that problem. They've been very helpful in troubleshooting issues. So, two-step verification. So we were able to get executive buy-in for two-step verification last year in June. We started our rollout with all the full-timers and administrative staff, first locking down anybody who had access to our ERP system. Then we moved on to the users with VPN, and we've been slowly rolling that out. And right now we're towards the tail end of the project. We're about 75% complete, with adjunct faculty being the largest population, and that's who we're working on now. Because we can't require people we don't allow SMS because it's inherently insecure. We can't require people to use their mobile phones because they're not college property. We do offer YubiKeys to our staff if they opt out of using their phone. And we also don't, so when we offer them a YubiKey, we also look to see, we ask them to set up two methods. So we have a backup method, which is paper code, or the mobile phone method. So that way they never will get locked out. So we also worked with PortalGuard to set up so students can opt into their own account on their initial login. But at some point, they can just, if they don't opt in, they can just go in and set it up themselves at any time. Now, we do offer Duo for employees. Duo is a paid service, and the benefit that we find with PortalGuard is the push notification aspect. You don't have to type in the 6-digit code. And a lot of employees like that, but we couldn't afford it for students. And the beauty of PortalGuard is that they have a built-in product. That allows you to have a built-in product that works with the mobile app, so there's no additional cost, and they can still do the paper backup codes. And if they choose, they could go to Amazon, buy a YubiKey themselves, and use the token authentication as well. The college did opt to require two-step verification when we rolled out direct deposit, which allows students to get electronic refunds for financial aid. We had seen fraud with check issuance, so there was some concern that somebody would log in, change the routing numbers and the checking account number, and then say somebody on their home computer that goes in, their brother changes the code to their account, and then they go in and they'd be like, oh, I never got the money back because it went to their somebody else's account. And they said a lot of times we get students who will call the help desk, or parents calling the help desk, pretending to be the student and things like that. And this puts an end to that. So we found it to be very effective. We have not experienced any fraud since we've gone live with the two-step verification. And we didn't experience any very many staff complaints either. I think the staff seemed to understand the need for it. We did also, we have done security awareness training as well, which has helped tremendously. Oh, here we go. Okay, so there's some animations here. So let me go back here. So this is a picture of a YubiKey. YubiKey is just a little token that generates a one-time code. There's no battery inside. You can see in that image there. That's how you just touch it with your finger and it inputs the code. And then this is what it looks like on the PortalGuard side. It asks for a verification code, and the code just populates right off the YubiKey, or that's where you would type in the code from the mobile authenticator. And then here's an example of the mobile authenticator code. And then you can see the backup verification codes as well, in case their mobile phone is broken or it doesn't work. So just to wrap up, we found PortalGuard to be an incredible value. We did look at a lot of big name solutions out there, and they were very expensive for the number of accounts that we needed to protect. We were able, PortalGuard we get for a fraction of the cost. And it's the beauty of the product it's extremely flexible and it's extremely customizable. We've customized the product to the point, I mean, it's like white label, so nobody can even tell that PortalGuard is running. It looks just like the portal at this point. We've customized the staff interface to match our workflow, and it's not difficult to do either. And anytime we've had questions, we just email the support team, and they'll say, "Oh, here's where you go to change this piece of code or do that," and it's been really easy. And prompting is in line, as I mentioned before, easy for our end users. And customer input equals new features. That's been huge for us. Anytime we run into any kind of security related issue or workflow issue, we'll reach out to PortalGuard and ask them, "Hey, can you put this into the product?" And depending on how many customers they might feel it will impact, they'll actually build it into the next release. But they offer a service as well, tailored authentication, which allows for where they'll give you a custom scope of work if it's something truly custom to your environment. So we have done a few of those as well for custom things that are unrelated to authentication. But they're willing to do it, which is something we appreciate. Some of the new features that we've worked on with them was the integration with Have I Been Pwned for the NIST standard, the inline two-step verification, and Duo support. And all of them, were developed, and instead of having to wait 6 months or a year, I think it was only it took them maybe a quarterly release. Now, we only do an upgrade once a year between major releases. We do put minor releases in, and they've been able to release specific feature sets depending on the feature. They'll release it to us in a custom installation package to help us maintain our uptime. With the solution, over the last 2 years, we've had 99.95% uptime, and that includes maintenance. Because we're load balanced, we don't need to take it out of service until we do the database server. So we've chosen consciously to only do security updates once a quarter for the database server because it's highly protected with firewalls and other security measures, software-based, because we value the uptime to our students. That was a huge complaint in the previous system, and it has not ever gone down because of any kind of programming issue or failure on the application side. So, when we purchased the product, I had high expectations, and they far exceeded them. So we're very happy with the product and the support that they offer. And the fact that, a lot of times when we're starting to think about something, they're already working on developing it. So it is an excellent product. So I'm going to hand it off now to Greg for a final wrap-up.
Very good. Thank you, Don. Thank you for the kind words. So before we get to the questions and answers, just a little bit of wrap-up. So with PortalGuard, and Don emphasized this during his part of the presentation as well, you're not just buying a software product. You're buying a solution that handles a multitude of aspects of controlling access in your environment. So you talked about the two-factor, the password reset, the single sign-on, where it becomes a single log-on screen is in front of over 50 different applications in their environment. So it reduces user training, it increases adoption of new applications, and so that's we're a very good way of doing that. It also helps future-proof you. So there's actually 15 different two-factor methods for logging into PortalGuard through a browser. So things like voice biometrics, where you can use a microphone to prove your identity that way. Printed codes, being able to use an alternate email address, so for example, like a non-school email address, as something to receive a one-time passcode at. Yeah, just a ton of different things. So we're always adding those, and again, on the single sign-on side, we're adding methods and protocols that are new, that are coming down the pike. And so that way, you don't need to be responsible for that. We've run into a lot of customers over the years that had their own homegrown application, whether it's for password reset or if they had multiple different products that they were using for single sign-on. Let's say they were using ADFS for single sign-on to Office, and then that doesn't support CAS, so they had an open source implementation of CAS for that. And then they also were using something with Shibboleth to auto-refresh metadata. And so you can get rid of all of those and consolidate that to a single product that handles all of that for you, and then so much more too. So just something to keep in mind on that is that it's kind of frees your IT from having to worry about that and maintain that. Or if somebody leaves and like, oh geez, yeah, John was responsible for that self-service password reset app that's now out of date and needs to be updated. You don't need to be in that business. We're a specialist. That's what we do. That's why we're here. So PortalGuard itself, it can be run on premises or in the cloud. And so we have a server pricing model, and it differs greatly from the standard per user per month that others charge. And so it helps schools budget effectively and avoid license true-ups, which can always be painful. Enrollments are always changing and in flux. So in this case, it's actually a flat per server cost. That way you don't, kind of free your folks from having to worry about that every month. And so on the right-hand side here, so we do take great pride. I'm happy to hear Don talk about his experience with us. I know they've been very positive, and so it's a two-way street. We take great pride in serving as an extension of our customer's IT department. We know a lot of IT departments aren't, it's difficult to keep people on board, and so we help serve as an extension. So we're here as that technical resource to assist, in the most effective way that we can. Okay. All right. I think at this point we're going to go ahead and answer some of the questions that have come in. So I'll send it over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Greg. It looks like we have about 20 minutes, so we could answer some questions, give or take. I guess it's a two-part question, I think for Don. Let me see here. How long did it take DCCC to implement MFA, and what type of MFA do DCCC employ with PortalGuard?
So we started our deployment in June of last year, and it took through December to get about the first 750 administrator support staff set up in the system. For all the, all administrators and support staff, we actually, offered them a YubiKey. And we did a white glove treatment. We had a team of people. Every person, we gave them an opportunity through O365 bookings to schedule an appointment with one of our two-step authentication team members, and we would send somebody to their office, give them the YubiKey, help them with their phone, help them print out the codes. We opted for that to reduce the resistance from end users, and we found doing that we had no complaints. We did, as I said, we got executive buy-in. We sent out the email. The CFO sent out the email to the community saying this is coming and here's our rollout phase, and then we followed up with here's how we're going to do the rollout. So we got no resistance using that method. So we do YubiKey, mobile app, and then the backup codes, and then later we added Duo. So we added Duo for push notification, but we didn't want to roll it out at the same time because we felt it would be confusing. Because Duo with the PortalGuard implementation only works with push notification. So we had to set them up with the YubiKey, the mobile app, and backup codes within the PortalGuard two-factor setup, and then Duo is kind of like an independent setup. We had been using Duo in IT for over, I guess, probably 3 years now. We've been using it in IT, so we decided to also offer it to the rest of our employees. So that was until December. We took a hiatus due to some staffing turnover, and we started the adjunct deployment. We picked it up again in July. We announced it, and we plan to force enable everybody in December. That's our plan. So we should, if you add the two timings together, I would say it's about a year. But again, it's because we chose that white glove method of working with each staff member individually, as opposed to just saying, go in and click some buttons and set yourself up. We didn't want people to be locked out. Once the senior management starts to get a lot of complaints, that can create some headaches, because they have to react to what their staff are saying. So, that seamless, I guess, smooth rollout is what we were going for. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, and I can add a little bit too about that, because what you have, where you have the different two-factor methods for different types of users, we see that a lot in higher ed. So Duo is very prevalent, but mainly just with IT staff, and that's because, as you mentioned, it is a per user per month. It's an external or third-party service. Cisco bought them, I think, last year, and I don't know if the pricing models changed, but I know Duo had in-common pricing. Yeah, they had in-common pricing, and so we ran into that a lot. And so, being able to have, IT can use Duo Push through PortalGuard, and then other things like Authy or Google Authenticator. We have our own app as well that generates OTP codes. And then for students that you mentioned, that you do allow them to use an SMS text message, because they don't have access to the same types of systems that IT does. So that's something that we can, definitely support. And yeah, it does not need to be that one size fits all.
We don't allow SMS for anybody. We do mobile app for students.
For students. Okay.
Yeah, mobile app or printed codes would be kind of frustrating, but with the printed codes, it will work for the site specific, because they're not required to do it on login. They only need it when they have that direct deposit app open, so it's not as big of an issue there. And the students, there is no plans to mandate that, just because I don't think we don't have the ability to support something at that scale. To unlock, so the PortalGuard does have an OTP override, where you can, as a help desk, issue an OTP code to people if they get locked out or they break their phone or lose their paper. But we require anybody who wants to unlock to do a Zoom session and hold a photo ID to their face, or come on site with a government ID. So that's our two methods. So it can be challenging, in an environment with 20,000 students coming through each year. If we force 2FA on them all, we just would not have the manpower to be able to help them unlock their accounts if they lock themselves out.
All right, thank you. I think you've touched on this a little bit already, but the next question is, what are the deployment options for PortalGuard, if you want to expand on that?
Sure, yep. So most of our customers are running PortalGuard on premises, so in their own data centers, and so PortalGuard is just software, so it does not matter if it's running on bare metal, if it's running on VMware or Hypervisor from Microsoft, or Hyper-V, excuse me. So it is, on-premises is still the most prevalent type, but we have seen more customers going direct to running PortalGuard in their own private cloud. So whether that's AWS or Azure, PortalGuard can run in a VM up there just fine. And we are also currently working on a true SaaS offering for on-demand password reset, and that's due out later this summer.
Okay. Next question is, how long does it take to add SSO for a single app?
And Don, I think you touched on that a little bit. So like GitHub you mentioned was about an hour, and it can vary as well. Sometimes there is that discovery. If it's an app that we're not familiar with, then there's that discovery of what protocols do they support, if any, this other app. And then there are some, and Don, I don't know if you've run into it, where you can't, as an admin, you can't log into like an admin console for that web application and enable, let's say, SAML or CAS yourself. You actually need to go through their support to make those changes on the back end. That can add some time, I know. Have you had that experience, Don, where you've had to go through it?
Yes.
Yeah.
But so on our side, it's pretty easy. As Greg said, there are a lot of different options that you can check when you're doing SSO, and there can be a lot of figuring things out. So it largely depends on vendor documentation in our experience. So as I said, Slack and GitHub and Zoom were a piece of cake. We did them, in under an hour. But we've had other ones that have taken us, weeks of going back and forth with support and trying to troubleshoot where that issue is. And if we need to, we get PortalGuard involved in helping us troubleshoot that and finding out what the issue is. But that's a minority of the cases. The majority of the time, we haven't had too many issues. So I'd say on average, out of the 50, I would say, maybe 4 to 5 hours a piece if you average all 50 of them. Some of them taking, when I say weeks, it's just, going back and forth, waiting for an engineer to get back to you and things like that. But then, the other ones are really quick, lickety-split. So.
Yeah, and I guess the moral of that story is to definitely leave yourself some time, for those unexpected issues. Do it in your test environment first. So it's don't overpromise. The higher ups if you can help it.
All right, looks like we have one more question here. Why are you using NetIQ identity management between Banner and Active Directory? Does PortalGuard take a feed from Banner to create the network accounts, group membership, and user objects?
So we use Identity Manager to also provision our Google accounts and our Office 365 accounts. Well, actually, Office 365 is done by AD Connect now, or Azure Connect. But it is used for the Google accounts. We have business logic programmed into it that takes our Banner roles. So we use roles in Banner and triggered events to figure out. Banner just sends the role over, but all the business logic on what to do with that role, what groups to put them in, what permissions they should have, that's all done in Identity in NetIQ, Identity Manager. PortalGuard does not take a feed from Banner that I'm aware of. We never used any other functionality other than SSO, password reset type stuff. So I don't know, Greg, I know you guys have a lot more to this product than what we're using. But we were using NetIQ before PortalGuard to provision the Sun1 directory. And now we just use it to go to Active Directory. I know I know Banner has an integration with Active Directory, but the business logic that we've developed is not available in that integration. We are looking in the future to maybe move off that platform to a different identity management platform that might be cloud-based, but that would have no impact on our PortalGuard implementation.
Yeah, PortalGuard can look at the directories in real time, so it communicates with Active Directory in real time. So if someone leaves, if you disable the account in Active Directory, PortalGuard will not allow them to log in. It will give them that clear message, oh, account's disabled. We can also go up against Sun 1 LDAP, other different type, any LDAP v3 compliant directory PortalGuard can authenticate against in real time. SQL-based directories, we have some folks that have alumni accounts in SQL rather than having them in Active Directory, and so PortalGuard can authenticate against multiple directory types. A single PortalGuard instance can do that. So yeah, we can even sync passwords across some of those as well. So yeah, there are other things on the directory side, related to the features that we have.
All right. Well, it looks like our time is about up. I'm going to wrap things up here. If you submitted a question that we didn't get to in the Q&A portion, someone from PortalGuard will follow up with you directly. I'd like to thank our presenters today for a very informative presentation. I'd like to thank all the audience members for joining us as well. As a reminder, you'll get an email within the next few days that contains a link to this recording, along with a PDF of the slides. Thanks again for participating, and have a great day.